Injana, this is your first Grand Prix and there's a £2,000 prize pot. How are you spending it?
Yeah, so like most other athletes, I'm gonna hopefully spend it on other competitions. So there's quite a lot of competitions coming up, especially in the autumn. So like Nogi Europeans and Nogi Worlds. So hopefully I'll use it to spend on that.
Amazing. I love the fact that we're all just investing in more and more jiu-jitsu and competitions. And it's really great to be able to chat with you today for the ENYO Submission Only Jiu-Jitsu podcast and the ENYO7 event at Central Hall in Southampton on Saturday, the 7th of June. Go and get your tickets if you haven't already. This episode is sponsored by Whiskey Wolf. Founded by Rich Harris, now a black belt, back in 2014 when he started making soap for use after training, but couldn't resist the drive and passion to turn it into creative stuff to exercise his design demons. Go and check out all the collections over on whiskeywolf.uk. And also go and check out all of the other sponsors for ENYO7 in the show notes. Today, I'm having a chat with Injana Goodman. So you have lots of competitions upcoming, Injana, with a very busy season. Tell me about your past competition history.
So yeah, I've done quite a few competitions. So I started really competing with a purple belt, so probably around 2 years ago. I started really taking it seriously. So I did my first like international competitions, so like ADCC trials, Europeans, Worlds, that's purple belt. I did quite well in those ones. I managed to win Europeans and Worlds that year, which was great. And then as a brown belt, I ended up getting my brown belt just under a year ago. And again, I've been doing more competitions like IBJJF, Europeans and Worlds, and also UWW, which is slightly different rule set. So yeah, I've been competing quite a lot recently.
Amazing. Now, I'm sure many people have seen your kind of competition history, but how does it feel every time you stand up on that podium?
It feels great to be fair. Yeah, I think there's so many nerves when you go into a competition. You do a whole big prep for it. There's normally people supporting you, and it's a lot of pressure when you go out to compete. So being able to be on the podium is usually like a big sigh of relief, like all the hard work's actually paid off in the end. So it's an amazing feeling.
I am yet to stand on a podium higher than a certain level. I'm not sure my legs are quite long enough, but I'm working on that one. So it sounds like, when you get that medal or a medal, it's time to relax until the next competition. How frequently are you competing in Jana?
It really depends on the time of year. I only do nogi, and so we kind of have like a nogi season, right? So um, usually during the autumn between September and December is very, very busy. I'm competing every month, sometimes twice in a month, because all just stacked together. Um, and then the first half of the year, so like this half of the year is slightly quieter. I've been usually doing more shows, so maybe once a month, once every 2 months, competing, if there's opportunities there. But yeah, it
Amazing.
really depends. Yeah.
Good. So couple of very, very busy seasons. Now, does your training schedule, is it relatively consistent throughout the year, or do you kind of have a flow to your training?
Yeah, so I've been trying to actually change this a bit as well. Instead of having the whole year be intense, I think it's really important to almost see it as off and on season. I think a lot of other sports have on and off, whereas in jiu-jitsu we don't really have that. Um, so I do think of camps. So whenever I'm trying to actually prepare for a competition, I go and I make sure I have like a 6 week camp for it where I'm training really hard, I'm really consistent. But I also allow myself to have at least like a week afterwards where I like decompress.
Yeah.
So either go on a little break on holiday or just not really train much that week. Or if I do train, it's just very light and a lot of fun, not serious training essentially.
Yeah.
Just to allow my body to recover. I give myself physically and mentally a time to just stop and reset until I can look at what else I have going on.
Nice. Now let's start with the light and fun training. What does that look like for you? And are you coaching? Are you teaching? Yeah, what's going on in this light, fun season of your training schedule?
Yeah, so usually I'm just trying out some new stuff. So instead of having like a focus and like um on a certain rule set, I'm usually just flowing, trying to find different submissions, maybe do some more fun techniques that I usually wouldn't do. Um, and yeah, there's a lot of coaching as well. So I teach quite a lot during the week. So I teach most evenings. So I start focusing a bit more on that and allow myself more time to become that coach.
Yeah,
So yeah.
that's good. How important is it for you to balance your own training as well as training others as a coach?
Yeah, it can be difficult actually. It's hard to be a coach and your own competitor because you want to put in time for your students. Um, but yeah, I think yeah. Oh, sorry, I forgot the question completely.
I guess the balance between your own training and training to be a coach and training others. How do you balance that? Because obviously those responsibilities don't go away
Mhm.
necessarily when you're building up for a competition. So how do you kind of balance things?
So usually I train in the morning. So all my training is done in the first half of the day. So normally at competition training is like 10:30. I then go lifting twice a week. So that's when we're doing lunchtime. And then in the evening, that's when I usually teach my classes. So I almost treat it as the first half of the day is my
Yeah.
own personal training, and the second half of the day is when I'm helping students.
I like that. I think that sounds like a really good technique to kind of front load your own priorities and looking after you and getting what you need done in the first part of the day and then kind of focusing on helping others kind of later. I know some of us with lots of other responsibilities, sometimes there's a drive to put other people first, but actually as a competitor and pro athlete like yourself, you really do need to focus on yourself first and foremost to be able to get the results that you have. What does the very intense training schedule look like? So whilst you've got the kind of morning routine, the training and the drilling and the lifting weights, what does the more intense 6 week period in the build up to something like a Grand Prix look like for you?
Yeah, so it usually ends up I increase the amount of train. So I'll usually start training some days like twice a day even. Um, and if I can't increase the amount of train, I just increase the intensity. Um, I think a lot of times people get really stressed out that you need to train a certain amount of times a week or a certain amount of hours. But I think what's really important is intensity and the drive doing those
Yeah,
sessions. There's so many high level competitors who have full-time jobs and they can't train more, but they're still really good. And I think the reason for that is they go into sessions with intensity um,
yeah.
and with something a goal to achieve during that session. And so that's sort of mentality I try to bring in during those camps.
That sounds, it sounds a very good idea and kind of technique. Some of us do have full time jobs and we're still having to balance everything. But you're right in suggesting that it's the intensity that is the variable rather than the frequency necessarily. We all have lives to lead. And whilst we all love jujitsu to be our full time life for the rest of our jujitsu careers, sometimes that's not always the case. What drives you kind of so much towards these goals in jiu-jitsu?
Ooh, that's a good question. Um, I think I have such a great team, to be fair. Like I have such a good competition team, or everyone who is in my gym actually, most of them do compete, but even the people who don't compete, um, everyone sort of pushes each other. And so even if you win or you lose, everyone's really supportive. And I think it drives me to try to go for another competition because I know that even if I don't do as well expected, I still have that support.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, I might as well go for it. Yeah.
I love that, and it is all about the team. But do you find yourself having a little bit of that competitive nature in you?
Yeah, I'm definitely competitive. Yeah, I try to joke that I'm not, but yeah, I'm quite competitive.
Okay, that's fine. It's good to be vulnerable and honest.
Yeah.
We've all got to see those strengths in our own character. And I think some of us really do thrive on that competitive nature. But knowing that's a thing, that's okay.
Yeah.
What I want some examples of this most competitive nature, Injana. Have you got anything that comes to mind?
I don't even like there's a lot of jiu-jitsu examples, but even just in general, like sports, I get really competitive. But I'm also quite competitive with myself. So I'm always trying to like get better at it. So even in jiu-jitsu, if I do well in a competition, I'm sort of like, oh, I could do better. So I'm always striving to do better than the last competition, even if I've done well, which yeah, it's hard sometimes.
I like that. We all have to find some way just to keep going, but com- competing with ourselves and our own performance also feels quite a healthy way forwards. But sometimes there's nothing like competing against something or someone on the outside of that, which we'll talk about in a minute. This is the ENYO Submission Only Jiu Jitsu podcast with me, Lou Temlett, talking with all of the upcoming ENYO 7 competitors. And one of the things that would really help this show grow is by you subscribing on whichever platform you are listening or watching on. If you could do that for me right now, I would be forever grateful. And as always, go and check out the clips on YouTube and Instagram at ENYO Grappling. Today, I'm having a chat with Injana Goodman. So this is your first Grand Prix experience. Talk to me about the setup for this Grand Prix and a bit more about what the £2,000 prize pot, even though we're all wishing you to spend it on more competitions. What does the setup of this Grand Prix for ENYO 7 look like?
So yeah, it's an 8-woman tournament. And so hopefully there'll be 3 matches. So it's gonna be a tournament style, I believe. So hopefully 3 if I get to the final. And they're 10-minute matches and they're sub only. So lots of
Nice.
sub attempts, hopefully lots of submissions during the show.
Okay. Now you've mentioned obviously ENYO is a submission only, but you've mentioned submissions, so it's a great opportunity for me to ask you what submission you are most known for, Injana.
I think what I'm most known for is arm bars. I quite like arm bars, but I also really like rear naked triangles. So either one of those two probably my highest ones when doing the competitions.
Good. Now, have you always been good at arm bars? Talk me through your kind of growth with being able to pull off this particular submission.
Ooh. Yeah, I've always been interested in arm bars. Funny enough, I feel like lots of girls, especially I've spoken to other athletes. I really got Ronda Rousey is one of the people who I looked up to as a kid. And she used to always do arm bars. So even before I started jiu-jitsu, I remember thinking, oh, arm bars are so cool. Um, and so I really started liking them for my white belt. So I used to always start doing them. As only the last like year, I started really honing down on it. So a couple of times I tried to do arm bars in competitions and it didn't work. People escape. People are really good at escaping arm bars.
Yeah,
So I've been really working on trying to maintain arm bars. So instead of
yeah,
actually finishing it, one of the main things that I've worked on, I think everyone can work on if they're trying to improve arm bars, is trying to keep someone there for as long as you can. So let
yeah.
them try to move around, try to make them escape, but just try to stay in arm position for as long as you can without finishing it. And that's something that I think's leveled up my game when it comes to arm bars.
Good. Now, I am imagining lots of inversions and various other things with trying to keep the armbar for as long as possible. What's been your most challenging experience with improving your armbar game?
Oh, yeah, I think really like flexible people. I think women are really hard to armbar because their arms just we just have really hyper flexible elbows. So there's some women who can just go and go and go and they don't tap. So I think
Yeah.
that's the most difficult part about doing arm bars.
That's amazing. So you're up for 3 matches, at least. Do you know any of your fellow kind of females in this Grand Prix? Have you fought any of them before?
Yeah, so the first that comes to mind is Martina. Me and Martina have faced each other quite a few times. I'm trying to think how many now. Maybe four? Yeah,
Okay.
maybe 4 times. I really like Martina. We're now friends. We faced each other so many times. Um, yeah, so she's always a really fun match. We have like quite cool games because she likes to play guard usually and go for leg
Yeah.
locks, and I like to play top. So it's usually really competitive. So I wouldn't be surprised if we face each other again in the Grand Prix. That'd be cool. Um, and who else was there? Jess Hammond. I
Yep.
competed against her years ago. I think maybe 2 years ago. When we were both purple belts. So yeah, I haven't competed against her since, even though we've been on same like shows and stuff.
Yeah.
Um, and I'm not sure if I've competed against any of the other girls. Yeah.
Okay. So there'll be some new women to practice these arm bars and test and improve your game. Because obviously we all know you either win or you learn. What do you think has been the biggest learning curve for you in your jiu-jitsu career?
Mhm. I think one of the biggest ones is probably not overtraining. I
Okay.
think instead of actually even technique wise, I think one of the things a lot of people do, especially as athletes, is overtrain because you're always constantly thinking, oh, the more I train, the better I'm gonna get.
Yeah.
But I've been learning that recovery is really important. Um, and so yeah, that's probably been one of the biggest learning curves for me.
Good. Well, that's, just being mindful of our own bodies and how we kind of operate, and not doing too much of anything. But, if you love something, then you want to do it all the time. Um,
Yeah.
so what else do you really love about jiu-jitsu? And before we started recording, you kind of mentioned your team. Talk to me about that.
Yeah, I just have a really amazing team. So in my gym, like Grapple Collective, first of all, we have a lot of women. So our coach Max, he's really been making a lot of effort to get a lot of women involved in the sport. So, for example, like on Saturdays, women can train for free in one of the classes before open mat. And so we've been getting more and more women in, and it's to the point where sometimes there's more women than men in the room, which I just think
Wow.
is amazing. You look around and you just like, there's not that many gyms in which that happens.
Yeah.
Um, so I just, yeah, I really love it.
It's so good. Just encouraging more women to start training and just kind of coming through the ranks of, training and kind of the belt system and competitions. You mentioned about a number of competitions coming up. Um, Talk to me about what comes after the ENYO 7 event. Do you have an opportunity to take a break for a while, or are you straight back into training?
Yeah, I think there's a bit of a break. I might be doing some other shows. Nothing is set in stone yet. But it really starts kicking off probably in October. There's like UWW Worlds again, and then there's Europeans and Worlds and Pans. So yeah, hopefully not too much of a crazy summer. Maybe some shows, that'd be nice. But yeah, then the competition season really starts.
Good. Now, you favor no gi. What is it about no gi that you love so much?
I think I really like the freedom of it. I think I can move around more. Um, I like to wrestle. I like to just do fast movements, and I like to scramble. It's probably one of my favorite things to do in jiu-jitsu is just scrambling. And I can do that in no gi more than I can in gi.
I would agree with you. I have been training a little bit more no gi than I have previously, and I am just so much more enjoying it. Um, yeah, I mean, it's amazing. I think we should all do all of the things. But Injana, do you have anything else to kind of mention? You mentioned your coach. Anyone else to kind of thank for your journey so far?
Well, my main training partner. She's called Fiona. She's a really high level competitor as well. So she's a black belt. And she's my main training partner, but she's also been my training partner since I first started jiu-jitsu. And
Wow.
she's probably, yeah, it's really cool. Probably one of my first people who I looked up to as a female in the sport, which is really cool. It's really important. I speak about all the time about role models, especially for young girls. And I think as we're going, that's why I think ENYO is so cool as well, because hopefully young girls can look up to women and other girls on the show and be like, I can do that. And I think Fiona was one of those people from me. I just used to go training and see her just in a whole room full of men and be like, oh wow, she's doing it, I can do it with her. And yeah, she's always there. So yeah.
Amazing. I think having fellow female role models is just so important. You know, whether we kind of consciously acknowledge that there are role models and kind of build more belief in ourselves to go and do what they're doing, it's just encouraging more excitement and more, you know, just more skill and more dedication and just more jiu-jitsu in general. How excited are you about the ENYO 7 event?
I'm really excited to be fair. I really love ENYO. Last time I went, it's just the whole vibe of ENYO is great. It's women supporting women. You just hear it in the crowds. Everyone is screaming, everyone's shouting, and it's no like one-sided. Everyone's just screaming for everyone. I just love it. And when you go backstage, everyone's just talking to each other, everyone's friends. It doesn't even feel like a competition really because it's so friendly. And
Oh,
the running of ENYO is amazing as well.
yeah.
Women just know how to run events. Like every single time a woman's run an event, it's just been amazing. It's organized, they give you times. Yeah, just the whole thing. I really, really enjoy it.
Amazing. And yeah, I might get a bit more of a sense of the backstage kind of friendliness and excitement, but I will be out in the front row cheering everyone on. Now, do you like a lot of noise during your match, or are you kind of more for a quiet arena?
To be fair, I don't really know. I just end up not being able to hear much. I just hear my corner.
Yeah,
I think it's
good.
nice to hear some stuff, like hear people cheering. It brings an
Yeah,
atmosphere. It brings energy to the room. But I
yeah.
understand if people also like quiet.
That's good. Just so that we're not putting you off. And I think any of us that have been in competition and we're trying to hear our corner, I can't.
Oh, yeah.
But you found that skill to listen to your corner and blur out everything else. I've still got some work to do. And anyone else that can't hear their corner when they're competing, yeah, we've got to attune our ears to the priority, not the general noise. But that sounds like good advice in life, actually. Just listen to your own corner.
Yeah.
Amazing. Injana, thank you so much for joining me. How can people follow your journey if they're not already?
So you can follow my Instagram. It's just Injana Goodman. That's probably the best way to follow me.
Good. Amazing. Well, good luck for next week. If
Thank you.
you know, people are listening to this, it may well have gone. But if you haven't got your tickets for ENYO 7, go and get them. And if it's already passed, then go and get tickets for the next event. Continue supporting these incredible young women coming through the sport of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and ENYO grappling, because it's just outstanding. Good stuff. Thank you,
Yeah.
Injana.
Thank you so much.
I hope you enjoyed this episode. Thank you for telling your friends about this show. And as soon as this episode ends, I'd really appreciate you dropping the show a rating and a review, and go and get your tickets. Anyway, thanks again for listening. Catch you on the next episode of the ENYO Submission Only Jiu Jitsu podcast.